Now, if you think of this in context of yourself or Susan Boyle, it's a question of how long we allow others to keep us, or even our own self-doubt, to keep us from achieving our dreams. You know, when we began the journey, my cousin and I, in regards to this book, we didn't tell anyone about it. Not our families. We kept it to ourselves for about 6 months because we were concerned that we would have naysayers dumping on our parade. So, I could just hear them saying, you're going to write letters to some of the most influential, not to mention busy women from across the world. They don't know you, and you expect them to write back? What have you been smoking? Because I want some of that. As women, we often stop before we start. And a case in point, if you think about this naysayers thing, is a recent study was done on how women and men respond differently to job postings. Women look at a posting, and if they have close to 100% of the requirements, they will apply. Men, on the other hand, respond if they only have 60%, 67% of qualifications. Another self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's look at another piece of advice. Sharon Allen. She is the chairman of Deloitte, one of the major professional services firms in the world. She grew up in a small town in Idaho, population 2,600. When she went to Moscow for her studies, that's Moscow, Idaho, she started as an education major, but with her roommates studying accounting, she decided to take a course in it. So I guess maybe we could have evening discussions about accounting. Anyway, she ended up falling in love with it, and her story is an interesting one, and how she became the only female leader of a major professional services firm in the world, and she is a staple on the Forbes 100 Most Powerful list. Sharon's advice: take responsibility for your own career. Early in my career, I was passed over for a promotion. I went to my boss and shared with him a list of my accomplishments. He didn't know that I had done all of those things. The lesson: don't assume that the people you work for are aware of all the good work that you are doing. Find a way to let them know without being a braggart. We need to market our accomplishments. There are many brilliant people out there who are sitting back in some little desk somewhere who are saying, someday they're going to notice what I'm doing. Well, they're the ones who will get passed over for promotion time and time again. Again, go back to the Virginia Woolf quote. Throughout history, anonymous was a woman. We need to identify our accomplishments to others, but as Sharon says, not be a braggart about them. Chief Kim Barrett, Wasson Reserve in Delta, BC. Her story is actually quite amazing. When she was 14, due to family circumstance, she moved from a cozy suburb in Vancouver to the Tsawwassen First Nation Reserve. Beyond the fact that with that move, she ended up being shunned by her suburban friends. She was shocked by the conditions of isolation, poverty, and hopelessness on the reserve. Yet she persevered and was the first in her community to graduate from high school in over 20 years. She became chief of the Tsawwassen First Nation in 1999 at the ripe old age of 28. She negotiated the first land treaty for her community and is focused on giving her community a sense of control over their destiny. And if you look at the history of the First Nations, this was quite an accomplishment, given that women were not allowed to become chiefs until 1951, when the Indian Act was changed. And one of the things that surprised us actually when we were doing research on this is that First Nations women were not allowed to vote in Canadian elections prior to the 1960s. Remarkable. So when you look at Kim's advice, When in a leadership role, be yourself. You don't need to change your style to emulate somebody else. Your own style is the most effective way to promote change within your own career. And I think Martha mentioned that earlier about not changing yourself. We don't need to change. We don't need to be like the guys. Nuh-uh. You know, we can be most effective if we're doing what's core to who we are. Pamela Wong. I know I said it for Hazel, but I love Pamela too. Her story is interesting as, you know, she's had a multitude of different types of career. But her success has basically been based on her saying yes to any interesting job offer. You know, even if she initially felt she didn't know much about the role. And then she went on and excelled at all of them. She didn't say no, and she didn't say, oh, I'm not going to apply or agree to this because I don't have 100% of the qualifications. She is the first woman in Canadian TV history to be a bureau chief and then the first woman in Canada to co-host the national nightly news. Eventually she founded her own TV company and created her own nightly interview program to host. And then she was the host of the Canadian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. She moved on to be Consul General of Canada in New York. She's a university chancellor, and after we published the book, she became a senator. Now, if you look at her advice, parents taught me through deed, not just word, perhaps the single most important of life's lessons, and it is my shorthand, not theirs, but the message was clear. Character trumps genius. Simply put, you can be smart, but if you are not kind, decent, fair, and generous, when it is difficult to do so, then all the brains in the world are for naught. This comes down to the fundamentals of leadership. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. And you know, it sounds really easy, but I have encountered enough people who call themselves leaders that this is not in fact what happens. But if you're thinking, and I've taught a leadership course, and I say to the students at the beginning, if you don't remember anything else, remember the golden rule of do unto others as you will have done unto you, and you will be a successful leader. Ecuador, Yolanda Cacabasi Navarra. I love flowing names, they're so great. She's one of those amazingly strong moral leaders, often writing and speaking about the role of ethics in globalization. And she was committed to the environment long before it was fashionable to do so, and has had many honors bestowed upon her. Yolanda has said that ensuring the viability of the environment is as simple as the logic of survival. If you live in harmony with nature, you will survive. If you don't, there is no option for life. Her advice, there is always something good in the problems and obstacles you face. Look for it. You know, when you think about sort of hitting that fork in the road on your journey, and sometimes it's a fork that can drive you over to the left or all of a sudden swing you to the right. The reality is it's about attitude. Attitude is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you deal with it. If you look at something that has changed in your life or changed in your career, then look upon it as what door is it opening for you. If you hit a road closed sign, find another way. So if we look at the signposts on the journey to success, strive for significance, not success. Don't let doubts and naysayers stop you from reaching your dreams. Take responsibility for your own career. Be yourself. Character trumps genius. And there's always something good in problems and obstacles. There's a whole bunch of more advice, but so, and remember, the only time you fail is when you stop trying. assistant over there. Hello, lovely assistant. Who's actually my